Hey there, hi there, ho there. I am Serena Hicks, and you are listening to The Serena Hicks Show, where we talk about love and money, all forms of love, self-love, neighborly love, love for your journey of entrepreneurship, love for the money you have, love for the debt you have, if you have any, love for your journey and experiences, learning how to make money, have money, steward money, donate money, receive money, love and money. That's it. We're going to talk about every intersection of and version of love and money. Welcome to the Love and Money Show. If you love it, tell a friend. I love you. I mean it. Let's go. Hi. Hello and welcome. This is a very special episode of the Serena Hicks Show. I have a very special guest. I want you to know that I just said hello to her and was like, listen, we're just gonna start recording. We're just gonna start recording and everybody can be in on this conversation. I think you guys are going to go bananas in the best way. And this is so relevant. I fully intend to overshare. And so let's dive into what I desire. So I'm just asking visually, only those who are watching on YouTube can track this. Audio people stand by. Can this just be one of two? Can we just plan on like two 45-minute episodes? Because I'm like, I don't think I can talk fast enough, and we have a lot to cover.
Yes, please.
Great.
And then
Everybody,
also you have permission to talk slower.
it's just not my thing.
This matters. This matters. I know I'm always like, there's two kinds of speeding up. Either it's just culturally us, or we don't think we deserve to take up time and space. The second one we can think about. The first one we should just celebrate.
I love that. Actually, yes, because I forget, and people close to me sometimes are like way too fast. And it's not an insult. It's just like our relationship where they're like, you're at 100 and I can't track you past 80. And I'm like, oh, sorry. When I get excited, I talk really fast. Hello, my friend. Will you please introduce yourself to everybody?
I'm Samara. I wrote this book called Permission to Speak. I had this wild moment in summer of 2018. I have this background as a dialect coach. So that means that I told a lot of movie stars what to do with their tongues.
That sounds so fun.
But it's true. I mean, it was a beautiful career behind the scenes in Hollywood, and I learned so much, and I loved my clients. And I'm saying this in the past tense, even though it's still a little bit still present tense. But this thing happened in 2018, and I couldn't go back. I was coaching Gal Gadot on Wonder Woman 2. I got to be in Washington, D.C. for the summer doing that. But that was also the summer that we were heading towards our first midterms under our former president's reign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 45.
And it would ultimately be this thing that we came to call the blue wave. But at the time, we didn't know. We didn't know if the blue wave would like gel. And there were all these first time women running for office. And I kind of knew this vaguely, but in my mind, I was like, I'm working on this show. I have a comical amount of downtime because, frankly, for anybody who's seen the movie, all the DC sequences before they went to London and filmed the rest of the movie was all just like outdoor flying, like stunt stuff, stunt work with no words. And I'm the word person. So I had nothing to do, and which was dangerous because that was also when that was the summer that we were all just trying to like do what we could to like stop the leaks of that fucking dude's presidency. Sorry. Am I allowed to swear? We're on the internet.
It's the Serena Hicks Show.
Is
Yeah.
this right? Great.
Yeah.
And going to protests and like writing postcards. Like all my activist friends were like, is anything working? What are we doing? And then we started to see the pictures of the kids being separated from their parents at the border. And that was that summer. And here I was working on a movie about a superhero who comes in and saves the day. And I was like, this irony is not lost on me, but it does not offer a solution. And then the solution, Serena Hicks might say, was divinely appointed. I got a call. I just got a call. A friend had asked me if I had, if he had my approval to suggest me, but I didn't even really know what I was saying yes to. And moveon.org, which is one of these like beautiful organizations that finds first-time candidates for office and helps them however they need help, was like, hey, these women don't know how to do public speaking. Mm-hmm. They're getting in their own way. We're just collecting some coaches who pro bono would jump in and help. And I was like, well, I've never done that before, but That sounds better than like just writing postcards and hoping they land in somebody's office. And also I have to admit, I had the thought, if they spend an hour with me, they're not going to get worse.
Oh, that's such a good thought. Okay, I have to interrupt this absolutely amazing and fun story. See, guys, this is why there's going to be 2 episodes. 0% chance we can get this in 45 minutes. First of all, I love that thought. Can you say it again? They're not going to get.
If they spend an hour with me on doing this thing I don't know yet if I'm good at, they're not going to get worse.
Okay, that's so valuable because I think one of the mistakes that people make, especially in business, in particular, women and people of color, as we're about to talk about endlessly, is like, am I good at it? Is the question. And the answer is almost always yes. But since they don't believe that yet, the self-concept's not in place, it's so valuable that you weren't like, well, am I great at it? And you were like, they're not going to get worse. Like literally worst case scenario.
Well, also like I'm one of those, you know how we're all like the teenage dirtbag or the delight to have in class. Maybe we're actually all secretly
Both.
Sort of those energies, and we discover them and explore them throughout our long, ideally long life. I was definitely a delight to have in class. I just trust I'm going to be a delight, and so I definitely borrowed that permission I had over in the realm of like I coach people over here and brought it over here. And the reason I tell this story when you said to introduce yourself is that the button, the like, whoa, the aha. I started coaching these women over Zoom, as we are right now. And I was like, oh my God, they are the answer. They actually like the superheroes are here. And each one of them is so genius. They're so exactly who we actually want to have represent us in the world. And they are having trouble showing up in a way that is going to make their genius obvious to the rest of us. And that little translation of magnificent off camera, but not so much on, I had my aha of like, that's my superpower.
Okay, pause for shrieking and applause. Pause because I can feel people driving being like, oh, she is right. Yes. And I love that you recognized it. And it's like, of course, of course, of course, of course you were in that line of work. Of course you had prepared prior with what you go over at the beginning of the book in Rhode Island. Like, of course, we are always divinely guided. You were being perfectly prepared for this pivotal moment and position, and not just then in 2018, the book, what you do now, what you share. It's so good. Okay.
Thanks.
Oh my God. Beyond
Because
welcome.
you know,
First
and
of
just being real, none of it felt obvious on the inside.
so that's the thing I was just about to say. I'm quoting you on this. I didn't even know what I was saying yes to. People forget in their story, it makes sense in hindsight. It's the obvious, and that was the moment that this new chapter began, looking backwards in the moment when you got that call. I didn't even really know what I was saying yes to. Yes. It's following that like next right step, next right step. This is the next right step. Don't even know where it's going to go.
Yeah. And there's so much trust and surrender and stuff we get to constantly work on, because while I was doing that free work, I mean, obviously the activist in me was like, check, done, no additional need for justification.
Of course.
And the like, small business owner me was like, am I supposed to be charging for is this a waste of my time? Right. And I just kept saying yes. And I was in such flow with these women, and they were like showing me my and it became the foundation for a book proposal that I wrote less than like a full year later, where I got to claim like world-class thought leadership on this.
Yeah, this is literally how it works. Okay. If you're listening to this on the podcast, number one, thank you. And number two, come see us on YouTube. We both make faces. We are both, you get this a lot. People are always like, you're very animated.
Yes, I get animated and expressive.
Expressive, that's it.
I'm like,
like
my face does expressions.
Totally.
I think all of our faces do expressions if we perhaps
they do.
Permission.
They do. Some of us have a lot of movement, and I just moved to Dallas, so I have a new Botox lady, and it was hilarious. She was like, oh my God. Like literally, she's like, you have a lot of movement, and was amused by
Was that a
my
note? Was that like a less movement would be good for your
it was
skin?
well, no, that's what was funny was she was explaining to me and I was like, listen, fun facts about me, you guys, fun fact. My body, number one, is a very slow metabolizer. So like if I want to take a Tylenol PM, I need to have taken it by like 7 p.m. at the latest if
Wow.
I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. Like just takes a long time, then it hits me like a ton of bricks. And a very small amount of most medicines work. So I was explaining to her, I don't remember how much Botox in Austin, but the short of it is she was cracking up because I came back in 2 weeks and she was like, oh my God, like I gave you the tiniest amount and it totally works. And she's also like, you do have a lot of movement. Do you want to do a little more freezing? And I was like, no, lady, this face makes me money. This is where I like it. We have to keep animated. Okay. This book, which thank you very much for sharing with me, I think last summer. Um, and one of the reasons I'm kicking off this conversation with, we're going to need another conversation, is I started reading it and I was like losing my shit at Starbucks. And of course, it was the medicine. Let me just say this: when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it in particular, so the book is called Permission to Speak: How to Change What Power Sounds Like, Starting with You. I'm holding it up for those on YouTube. It's also visual everywhere now. Here's the deal. I didn't recognize, and I think that this is something that I experienced as a business and money mindset coach, I didn't recognize until so recently that I wasn't speaking, which was so much of why my 2023 was painful. I wasn't saying things, I wasn't using my voice. And it was, I think it's always silence, always, what is it? Silence always benefits the oppressor, like always favors the oppressor. And I was just in a fearful, I'd parted from a coach who I don't think terribly highly of. And I was in a they talk about me. I have some evidence. Like it was this fear state. And it's like my voice was literally, I was scared. And of course, throat chakra closed. And then I think it's interesting because I had a down revenue year in business. And I'm like, but of course, my clients literally feel me. And I wasn't sharing whole pieces of me. And not that we have to share everything with everyone, but I just feel like they felt what is she hiding? I think was their unconscious experience. And what's fascinating to me was that it took me so long to recognize my voice. That's what I was hiding. I
Mhm.
felt like I'd experienced public lynchings and I didn't want to be a part of it. And I use that example like witch hunt, and I feel like you can speak to this. Like we have seen people be punished for speaking, and then we don't talk. And it's so interesting to me because I think it's so insidious. Like to your point of the first woman that ultimately inspired you ultimately writing this book, smart, accomplished, empowered women don't often see themselves as, quote, needing permission to speak.
The comment I've gotten the most from this book, besides just like the thank yous, which I take very seriously, is I didn't know I needed this book. Which you
That
can
is it.
imagine, by the way, is a marketing conundrum.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
But yeah, yeah. And the reality is that like my book is for anybody who needs a massive hug and kick in the pants and love letter to them opening
Mm,
their mouth.
mhm,
And often it is those of us who are the quote unquote strong friend who have
mhm.
muscled through and who just need the invitation to actually go back and unpack an inventory. What are the ways in which we have cut ourselves off and tried to, play the game? And are we at the
Mhm.
moment? Are we at the moment now where we get to like reclaim the parts?
I love that. And I want listeners, and I'm asking for myself also, how do you, let me, hold on, let me find the question because I was just power walking back from a coffee shop for this, hence the sweaty, hence the stinky. Good times in Texas summer.
I wish I were closer to you and could smell you.
I mean, you don't, but thank you. Thank you. I don't know that you do, but thank you for the kindness. Um, I think my suspicion is that some people who are listening to this or watching this are thinking right now some version of, well, I don't need that yet, or I don't need that, or I don't even know if this makes sense. I think, especially you having worked in Hollywood with all these A-list actors, it's almost like and I feel the same with you. I think so many people, like I see money mindset everywhere I look, and so many people are like, no, that's not my issue. I need to perfect my marketing, or I need my brand colors, or and it's like they're all entangled. So it's not like any one approach is ideal. But what would you say to the woman who's thinking, I speak my mind? And you and I might lovingly suggest, do you always?
Mm. Okay, I'm going to make a distinction here because part of the what's hard and like juicy at the same time around voice stuff is that the word voice can be defined as a billion different things and has been somewhat accidentally, I don't think anybody mean-spiritedly did it, but accidentally co-opted in this sort of pithy find your voice, which then ends up meaning nothing instead of what it's trying to mean. So let me just define what I care the most about. And then there's all kinds of like auxiliary stuff that is applicable, which is interesting, but my heart. What I found when I was coaching those women is that what they sucked at, lovingly, what they sucked at was the actual act of being seen and heard at scale in their weirdness while they care out loud about what they actually care about. So speaking up on behalf of other things related, speaking up in romantic situations, right? Even in work contexts where the stakes are low, but the friction is real. This is all super relevant. But the part that I want to come back to and that I want to just like really hone in on because it's part of the answer to your question is in what ways are we saying yes or are we not saying yes to pitching our idea, to being on that podcast, to pressing play on that video, to listening back to ourselves because we're fine with how we show up? In what ways are we stopping our legacy work from happening because we have a profound visibility issue? And is that visibility issue, the being heard at scale mess, connected to old stories about how powerful people have traditionally sounded that we have accidentally taken on because we live inside of the actual culture and it has been a defense mechanism and a survival mechanism to take it on? Are those stories stopping us from becoming ourselves? And if so, might we change those stories instead of ourselves? And if we start thinking about the new sound of power, the emerging sounds, plural, of folks who show up that we watch them in like in a talk that goes viral, in a, whether it's like a formal TED talk type of thing, or just like a moment in a town hall or a, whatever, an art space, those things that go viral that we feel a physical urge to like pass along when we read it or when we watch it, because we're like, I can't keep this in. Our body knows. Can we start to name that that's actually what showing up in the future is, can be, should be? And that's the kind of world, the kind of leadership we would like to see more of. So the people that this book is for, you're already, I know those of you who are listening and watching, you are already like self-subscribing, right? I don't need to tell you who you are, but I will say that almost always it is women, it is people of color, it is queer folks, it is immigrants or anybody whose regional accent, codes you as not from around here, or who's been told that your voice is too high or too low, or you say like too much, or you say and too much. And thus you must change in order to fit the standard. And I'm here to call bullshit.
It's so fun. And I love that you mentioned accent. I grew up in Texas. I'm surrounded by East Texas accents. And I spent every Christmas and every July, like the first 20 years of my life in Rhode Island. And I remember my cousins, like when I was young, would be like, if I said y'all, like I have conscious memories of being in kindergarten in Dallas and asking like my friend, I need to go to is it bathroom or bathroom? Because my mother's New England accent, it's bathroom. And like asking as if it were like, literally a language question, like, is it bathroom or bathroom? And I was like, bathroom. And then, raise my hand and can I go to the bathroom? And it's funny to me only because even though I have like memories of my cousin being like, what is a y'all? And sometimes people comment about my sort of lack of accent. And obviously it was an unconscious, but totally like a survival thing as a young Black biracial kid. We're not going to have a Texas accent. Certainly when I moved to New York City, we're not going to have a Texas accent.
So what you're describing, which I just want to like zoom out, I've just decided to name a voice story, which I don't need to tell you or anybody listening. We're real familiar with the idea of a money story, right? We know that some of it is fact-based. I grew up poor, I grew up blah, 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 I da, 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 da. And a lot of it is myth-based, which is not to say full-on lies, but like fascinating half-truths and stories of our culture or of your sub personal culture that got hardened into
Hmm.
this must be true. And then we all get to get to face our money stories. Same with voice stories. So of course, how we grew up, where we were elsewhere, and what
Hmm.
people thought of us, the tiny,
Hmm.
often I found now that I'm like the collector of people's voice stories accidentally, right? Uh, I mean, I guess perhaps now on purpose,
I
but
know.
like initially it was
Sacred
like, oh,
work.
there's someone else, right? And even like, people that I would identify as not how I would jump to a biased conclusion would
Hmm.
maybe feel like they are the most representative of the dominant culture in every identifying way. As
Hmm.
soon as I referenced this idea, I'm thinking of a specific guy, he was like, oh my gosh, I was the youngest of three, and my older siblings were funny, and I was the quiet one. And so when I went to school, I created this whole new persona, and I became the funny guy. And then the way that that's impacted my whole blah 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 blah. And I was like, that's a voice story, and our voice story gets to take on new chapters.
Mm. Mm. Okay, I love that because I feel like I could just visualize a certain client saying like, you know, I'm not good at talking about my prices. And it's like, no, that's just a story.
Right.
Like it gets to have been true.
Yeah.
And just the way you said, like we get to have a new chapter where it's like, oh, it
Yeah.
didn't used to be good, but now I'm fairly comfortable
Yeah.
naming
Remember
my
when
price
I
or
used to be that person who, right? We can love on that. We can love on our like less evolved, whatever.
yeah, well,
Look,
yes.
we all know that like kid us, teen us is so desperate to fit in or to stand out in exactly the right way, but not in the wrong way, that we're constantly figuring out how to navigate the world, how to accommodate, how to be seen as.
Hmm.
And then at a certain point, my clients are always either like our generation or people at any major transition point
Hmm.
who are having
Hmm.
like a, oops, I accidentally took on the dominant narrative. How do I deprogram?
That's it. That's it. I mean, that's literally what I'm looking onto, my year of personal growth is how I refer to my 2023. And it's like, yes, I just took on all of this and suddenly it was this like mostly I spent the year sifting, sorting what is mine, what is not mine, what is aligned with my values now, what are not, which actually I want to circle back to because something that I've been super vocal about and I stand by, but it's so nuanced and I want to speak to it, is
Mhm.
not working for free. And here's why it's nuanced. And I think you modeled the perfect ideal, excuse me. Well, I think everything is perfect. So that's just weird. But and by perfect, I mean like if it's reality, it's perfect. But
Yeah.
an ideal scenario of where you were working for free. And I love that you shared like there's the conflict. Like, the activist in me is absolutely sign me up. Thank you for calling me. And yet the small business owner, like, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? Here's what I want to offer to everyone, the nuanced 2024 edition of working for free. Absolutely. Generosity pays off. If we're talking about money mindset, generosity pays off. Like literally and figuratively, most importantly. And boundaries make bank. And why I want to add this nuance, why I still am like, everybody stop working for free, is often people are working for free because they're afraid of being in their power and getting paid. If someone who has been getting paid, even if it's a day job doing something completely else, as long as you mostly have rent covered and hopefully health insurance, then if it is in your pleasure, please do work for free or not enough. I want to articulate the nuance. Oftentimes, especially in the coaching community, I find people, are like, well, I have to do this for free. I have to do that for free. I'm like, that's patriarchy. That is what's problematic for any, in my opinion, person in the industry, meaning like working for free was not an option for me when I started. I had bills to pay. And so I don't like the idea of undercutting. But when it is a conscious, clear-eyed, this is a contribution I am making, it is not air quotes working for free. It is a conscious choice. It is not because then maybe hopefully someday someone somewhere will say my name and then they'll just magically pay me. Deferral of power. It is a powerful choice.
This is also why
Hmm.
I your work so speaks to me, because also what you're saying is that in our bid to make sure that we are not underestimated by society, we can
Yes.
sometimes institute new shoulds that
Yes.
also accidentally get us out of alignment with like our highest and best joy, delight,
Yes.
purpose. So,
Exactly.
for example, like you and I both are the type of coach who are like, you do you, and here are some strongly worded words to make sure that you stay in your power.
Mhm.
But if the listener is accidentally instituting that as a new should, we're not quite getting, like, I had this whole
Yep.
back and forth ridiculous, how am I going to tell this story? I'm just going to tell it. I got to do a book event with Rachel McAdams, who is one of my clients and really showed up for the book. Her blurb is on the back of it, just the greatest human, exactly as you hoped she would be. And we did do a book event together, and she got up and said words that I did not expect her to say. And one of them was, she and I ended up sort of performing for the audience some of the nuances of the dialect stuff in terms of exactly what you just said. That she said I was a surprisingly hands-off dialect coach, and now that she's read the book, she knows what I was actually doing and how like hands-on I was, but didn't, no, 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 no. But she was like, it seemed like you were just letting me figure it out on my own. And I was like, or discovering how to trust yourself. Because the thing with dialect work, but like, as my friend Serena Hicks says, same, is if you have a perfect, beautiful accent come out of your mouth when you're practicing next to your coach, and then you go to your coach for feedback, you're not there yet.
So well said. We learn by doing, not just by doing what someone told us to do, the end. So good.
And the
So
like,
good.
look, the sort of approval part of all of us, bless, recovering people pleaser, like,
Me.
what am I supposed to say? Like, she's allowed to exist. Like, of course she's
Mhm.
allowed to exist. But when you
Mhm.
catch yourself going, that felt good for me, but I don't totally, that's not the solution. Was it right to them? Even
Mhm.
if it comes from such a well-intentioned place, it's not quite the thing yet. If
Mm.
what we're going for is like a truly decolonized sense of reconnecting to our own spirit and our own voice.
That part. That part. So I used to teach dance, pole dance. Have we discussed
Yes.
this?
I
Perfect.
love, I love all stories about this.
Thank you. Do you know the school that I went to, like that I learned from in New York City? Have you ever heard of, I don't, I think they still exist. S Factor. S is in Sheila
Oh, it sounds
Kelly's.
very familiar. Yes.
Yeah.
Not that I did
So,
it. I yearned to be that free back then.
oh wow. Well, I actually, um, let's vague book. I mean, I know we're not on Facebook, but let's. I worked for a show with my very favorite lawyer, true story. And sooner or later in the future, because I started writing a book about it, then I lost the book. It was fiction, wink, wink, about my stories working as a television producer. And I was inspired by The Devil Wears Prada. And I'm sure everyone listening here knows that is fiction, wink, wink, inspired by something. And it is fiction, of course. But also, it's like the person got the idea in some scenarios
They say
from
write what you know.
right.
They.
Hey, let's be honest, it's fiction. I was like, I'm just going to take these 5 different stories and like mash them up and maybe not in perfect, it's not a documentary. All but to say, I started writing the book, and this lawyer whose name I will not say, but I love her so much. And I literally know it'll be a very fun day when I get the letter from her being like, you weren't supposed to do that. And be like, yes, but it's hypothetical. Um, I hated the job that I was at, the TV job that I was at then. I can't stress that enough for everyone. I didn't know all the things I know now. I just hated it. And I remember I had a client who was a big client, and she went to S Factor and she told me all about it. And so it was almost like a work event the first time I went. And I immediately fell in love because it was a pole dance studio that was not about the emphasis on the male or the lover's gaze. The emphasis, no mirrors, zero mirrors. So low and soft lighting and no mirrors, because mirrors are that's when women look and compare their body and compare, am I doing it right? Is this air quote sexy or pretty? So no mirrors, so that the um, focus and attention is on self. How does it feel in your body? Is this fun? Do you enjoy this spin? Fast forward to when I moved back to Austin, Texas, there was nothing like it, and I hungered for it. I started a studio, blah, 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 blah. Okay, inspired by them. And one of the things that was really fun for me was, and I've come back into this power in my coaching space, but first I found it as a dance teacher. So I would teach them like moves, almost like, and I used to say it's like learning poetry. First, you got to learn words. Then you learn, like, if it's a haiku, like 4 syllables, 8 syllables, four, like you've got parameters, and then you just fuck it up until you find the flow that is your voice, your energetic
Yep.
signature. And so it was all fun and games the first few classes. It's the most fun. Love you, Serena. Text messages. This is changing my whole life. And somewhere around week 4 or 5, when I started giving them, it sounds like Rachel McAdams had this experience with you, what felt like a lot of space, like even in the middle of, so at the end, everyone would dance to a song. They bring their own song and they'd sort of look at me. And it was very common for people to yell, tell me what to do. and I would just look stupid. And like, what's so great, spoiler alert, y'all, someday there will be more of this. But what's so great is two things would happen. They would either like give up and like be done and walk away. Or if they stayed in their frustration or allowed their rage at me in that moment to bloom, it's almost like you could watch it like a champagne bottle pop, and then they'd be on the other side and they'd find their flow and voice.
Mm.
Like without fail. It was like, would they give themselves, would they go past, they'd either, most people, that's not fair. The first few times people would give up, but if people stayed in their frustration or their embarrassment or their Serena's the worst teacher ever, they would pop to the other side and all of a sudden start dancing. Everybody would go bananas because it was so like, oh, there she is. And I love that ultimately that's what you do. I should have known. One of my students told me I was a Mr. Miyagi. And it's so what you do. Kids, if you've not watched Karate Kid, go watch it. But exactly. I love that we both do it. It's like, you're painting, wash on, wash off. LOL, you're learning. You're not actually washing on, washing like you are, but it's that repetition. It's a skill set that ultimately is foundational. And yet in the process, it can feel so busy work, unnecessary, unsupported. And I think it's because of what you were saying about it's dismantling.
There's an example that you're
Please.
making in all of our lives, probably. But most people I've talked to, myself included, consider when we're going to maybe record something that we might say and too much. So just naming the old filler words equal I'm unprofessional or whatever we want to name that story to be. Which, by the way, I was just talking to somebody who's writing a book about this. Like, it doesn't help that we all grew up watching people on teleprompters reading pre-recorded things, looking into the lens, but actually reading and doing it well enough that you don't know that they're reading or it's not obvious that they're reading. And so you get us, we in the homes, looking at those, get the unspoken story that if you don't speak in full paragraphs, you don't deserve to be on prime time. By the way, if we're talking stories, right? But so back to us, back to all of us, the two of us, and also to all of us, when we're thinking about going on air in any capacity or giving a talk, there is this question of what about my ums and my uhs and my likes? And then there's this whole cultural story of like trying to cut out saying things like, if you know what I mean. So there's two ways to tackle this. And it's totally what you were talking about with taking the mirrors down and starting to actually check back in with ourselves. Here are the two ways. One, listen back, count your ums, have somebody else count them for you, police yourself. There's some industry, public speaking industry work out there that is exactly this. It probably works if by works the success means you say fewer ums. If the success means you live a joy-filled life where you show up like a human every time you show up, I have another suggestion, which is you do the inner work. And I'm using this vaguely, but reading my book doesn't hurt. Listening to this conversation doesn't hurt. Hugging more friends doesn't hurt. You do the inner work of believing down to some deeper bones in your body that what you have to say and the ideas in your own mind are of deep, deep value. And when we then show up and say those things, we accidentally say and less.
It's so interesting. I'm putting on my coach hat this instant. What we think and believe creates more of the same. So when someone's thinking or believing, oh, I say too much and that is bad, that experience, like it's an unconscious perpetuation of the experience. And when someone is not even thinking, oh, I never say it, just literally have shifted their attention, as you said, like the attention is on the value, not concern for do I say it too much? And then ironically, they say it less.
Right. And just to bring like the no shame into this, if we're worried about saying and or like too much, it may be completely valid because there are folks out there who judge us based on how we sound. And we live in a biasy world. And here we are just trying to make do. So if we're trying to solve it by like fast tracking to cutting out our ums and uhs so that we get taken seriously and do the things we're here to do, I get it. And a tiny bit longer, but deeply more satisfying solution is to just love the F on yourself and on your ideas. And then you are literally approaching public speaking from love instead of the fear that we've all been taught is the point.
Okay. Yes, yes, and yes. And I would be remiss to not point out today, as we record this, was the first day of the hashtag Love Trust Money mini course and program in the Boom Boom Room. And to your point, I am teaching, by the way, I'm going to brag that you're in the Boom Boom Room. I love that for me.
Yes, I love that for me.
Thank you. And I love that for anyone who joins. You can come say hello and fangirl once, but don't be weird. Okay. Don't get in here and be like, like, okay, we have a lot of cool kids and all cool kids are welcome, but be cool.
Marina
Okay.
attracts the cool kids.
I do. I thank you. Took me about 40 years to figure out that is actually one of my professional gifts. So just what you said, it might take a little bit longer, but it's long-term lasting. I'm like, yes, that is the power of what you offer. I want everyone to read the book. We're going to do a second when I'm finished with the book, which is we're going to have to book it because I live by coffee and deadlines. But the other thing is the love, because I feel like some listeners are like, okay, but how do I love on myself? And the thing that I was teaching in the kickoff of the Love Trust Money today is our society, I think, well-meaning, including myself, humans, we spackle the word love onto all sorts of things instead of finding the frequency, the energy. Like when you say love on yourself, I can just feel 3 different listeners being like, I love myself, but it doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, friend, hugs. That energy is self-attack. That energy is not the frequency of being in love and connected to ourself. I think the example that I have that I want to offer everyone, one of the reasons I love the Byron Katie events is she makes me bananas with how she talks, and I love her fiercely. And so it has provided so much evidence. And what I mean, you guys, if you ever listen to, you listen to Byron Katie in person, or even she does, like, she records live Zooms every week, literally like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. She's like, oh, hi, oh, dears. Oh, and I'm like, spit it out, lady. Like I'm over here just looking for efficiency. And yet I love her so fiercely. And she says, and she loses her train of thought on a regular basis. And it has given me the can't argue with reality evidence that our people are attracted to us, attuned to us, and find us, even if we speak in a cadence or with ums. And so, yes, like if it makes you feel better, do what you can, do whatever you can. But it's like the fact of the matter is, if someone is genuinely repelled by ums, they're not our people. And having said that, the fact of the matter, if someone's running for political office they're in a traditionally corporate setting, of which I have an allergy to, I'm very happy that this book and your work, you are available. Because I do want to be respectful. What I coach my coaching clients and service provider clients on may be different than those who choose to do their sacred work in like corporate settings.
Yeah, and a lot of the work that I've been doing this last year since the book came out is in corporate settings and is about navigating that. So the work, by which I mean the book, but also just my work and also like our work, is very much like a stepping into a dreamscape. And then there's also the reality of and, you know, like, you know, one of my favorite quotes of all time is Toni Morrison said, as you enter positions of trust and power, dream a little before you think. Of course, we can all have our own interpretation of this. Mine, I always think of that metaphor of having a seat at the table. And in whatever way any of us is currently striving to have a seat at the table, I'm very interested in us getting to that table and then not looking right and looking left and going, how does this table work? How do I fit in? But instead going, now that I'm at this table, what color, what spirit, what energy, what values am I going to bring so that my seat at the table has the value that I fought for, right? Exactly. So there's this dreaming element to public speaking, to our money relationship, right? There's this dreaming. And then there is also, of course, if we work in a perhaps corporate environment, there is also the reality of navigating, okay, but what concessions do I need to make today to literally not lose my job? I bring all this up because I do also want to honor for everybody listening that like the first talk I ever gave on this subject before book was called How to Use Your Voice to Get What You Want. I think it's really useful to go, wait, time out. What do I want? And with truly no shame, if what I want at the end of the day is to keep that job, to amass that power so that down the line I can use it beautifully, great. There is more game playing possible, right? For you, because you know that you have a long con. If your goal is to feel in integrity with yourself by the end of the day, every day, because you are at that point where that's the thing, then there are different concessions and there's different like questions about, am I negotiating away too much of myself? And we get to
It's
just
so
go,
good.
what season am I in? Right?
It's so no shame, no judgment. And I think it's so, I just want to make sure, and my listeners are very smart, but I want to make sure everyone's tracking this. This is the new way. Instead of like, this is the way. You need to be integrity with yourself at the end of every day, 100%. Like that is a privilege that I am currently afforded and you are afforded. And there are seasons and there are situations where, and you know, we're not trying to be an asshole around here. I never recommend that, but like where someone is fitting into a box for a season very strategically, very like, this is the season of that. And that gives me chills because in particular for all people of color, hello, all women, so many of our ancestors did that. Like
Yeah, and
on
we learned from
purpose.
them, and we learned it from them, and we learned what to be afraid of from them. I mean, this is part of why your work and my work, resonate with each other.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the ways in which it was unsafe to be seen and heard a mere generation ago, if not currently.
Still, yeah.
And
And
know that stigma comes with us when we open our mouths to speak on our own convictions in a public that was literally not built for us and with us in mind. That stigma that lives in us that can sometimes come out in I shouldn't say or is just the radical revolutionary work we get to do of being like,
it
I'm
is.
here anyway. And if I center my own joy, even in a world that is sometimes utterly joyless, but if I center my own joy, by which I mean bring your own little sparkle of I'm doing this partly, at least partly for me, we're breaking the cycle. We're changing the story.
That's it. Cycle starters and that. So I have to say it again. I have to. Love, trust, money. Like I'm obsessed with the mini course, the concepts of things we're talking about in the Facebook group, because it's also, I love that we're wrapping up on joy. Like it's not just about someday getting there. Okay, great. Now I feel great about speaking. Now I feel great about my money. It's not like, 2 years from now or even 2 weeks from now. It's right now, finding the joy, finding the glimmers, noticing the process, celebrating the process and the progress of speaking up and not, oh my God, I should have said I'm a horrible person and when will I ever learn? Instead, it's what can I do to support myself in feeling safe and being safe and feeling equipped? Like, what are the things? And
You know what I'm big on right now?
oh,
I point people also to my Substack if they want to join. There's the free version and there's the $8 a month version, which I have to say is the deal of a lifetime. But it's called How to Show Up, and it's been my space since the book to sort of evolve my thoughts on this, give myself permission to have my own thoughts evolve. I agree with everything in the book still, which by the way is itself like a huge win. And for example, I completely left out of the book the erotic, the potential relationship between public speaking and different kinds of love and what actually makes us feel connected to somebody. So anyway, it's a spot for that, but I bring it up now because the kick I'm on right now is warming up. And like, I think we can accidentally think of a warm up as like stretching before a run or as like an actor going la 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 la. But what we do in the moments before to get our mind, our body, our spirit into the space, it's like it's like your brilliant work around intentional thoughts. It's like, cool, but are you going to have it in that 2 minutes before, or are you going to self-sabotage yourself because of old habits? Self-sabotage, like the moment where you could show up and the thing could happen. It's easy to do a warm up, but it's also really easy to discount its value.
100%. That's so well said. It's so easy. But that's our culture, constantly seeking the so-called ROI or payoff. This is a
Yeah, yeah,
money
yeah, yeah,
coach,
yeah,
as
yeah,
in
yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
the
Is this
fist.
efficient? Is this efficient? Totally, totally. So in the realm of love, trust, money, the self-trust of actually like showing up for a sec
Hmm.
and remembering to orient ourselves towards the
Hmm.
things that matter, towards love over fear, towards abundance over scarcity, like the moments before. Psychologists call this priming for power. I might think of it as priming for
Mm,
passion. But like, let's prime ourselves.
I love that. I love that I've heard priming, but I've never heard it the way you just said it. Like it resonated, pun intended.
I mean,
Okay.
if you look at an MRI, like you can actually see the difference, It's like, let's just do
Hmm.
this for ourselves.
And we feel the difference. I think it's unconscious for most, not all
Mm.
humans, but we feel when people are like, oh, I just love hanging out with this person, or I love the sound of your voice. It's like what they're feeling is the energetic emissions of a more grounded and or in the frequency of love. Like we can feel when someone is out of sorts and just like doggies,
Also gives
just
all
like
of us.
all animals.
By the way, reminder that we are in fact animals.
Yeah.
Right. This helps. This
Yeah.
helps.
We
This helps
feel.
for sure. And yes, and also it just gives us all permission to be like, and then I'm off sometimes too. And like, if the
Yes.
camera were to be like thrown in front of my face at that moment, I would actually be like, I'm not connected. So what is a 2-minute thing you can do to get connected so you don't go from like cold to hot?
Okay. Tell everyone where to find your book, how to follow you in the show notes, all the cool stuff will be there. But tell everyone the
Amazing.
things.
I mean, Google. But the book is available everywhere, certainly on Amazon, but also in bookstores, etc. It's also available in like literally 15 countries and 5 languages, which is a delight and a half. I know, I know,
Congratulations.
I
That
know.
is
It just came out in Argentina. Like I find out from the internet. It's delightful. But so it's available in English as well as other languages. And the Substack is called How to Show Up. And if you don't know what Substack is, like, don't worry about that. It's really just newsletter. We've talked about this a little bit. It's like it's just
mhm.
another place where you can build a little community on the internet. And my community is delightful. And all, working on showing up and defining for ourselves what that means.
And I suspect showing up for each other.
Community care is a big
Yeah.
part of it. It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I learned the very first time I talked about this at that How to Use Your Voice to Get What You Want, that I don't have to be the expert in all things. We don't have to be the expert in all things, but that I needed to bring 3 things. One, some words, just some language to help capture, right? Just some words. The space, it's a psychological safety thing, but it's also a literal space. It's like actually creatable time. And the solidarity, which naturally happens. I don't even need to bring that part. People just saw and heard each other. And then they were like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the one who can't hack it. All of the saddest, meanest things we can say to ourselves, it just still lives back there. We got to hear each other's and go, oh,
Literally, there are no new thoughts. It is phenomenal to me how we recycle, which is why each of us doing our individual work is so healing in the collective. It's like so many of us are just inherited thoughts, borrowed thoughts from our family members, teachers, the communities we grew up in. And suddenly it's like, wait a minute, let's ask some questions.
hmm.
So good. Okay. Um, I will be sending you the link to schedule the next session. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, get the book. Maybe we'll like book club party it, but get the book so we can talk more about this. Also, this is an absolute invitation for you. If you are not already in the Boom Boom Room, it's lifetime access now. I like went through a phase where I was like, no, we're going to do limited time and people can always re-up if they want. But I thought, because I'm sure people are like, what were you thinking? I thought if you put a time limit on it, that like encourages people to come in and like be super active, but it also creates a sense of hurry and worry. And sometimes people were trying to push through the content and the
Not
healing.
listening to ourselves, which, as we've just discussed, is like such a profound part of it.
Nope, exactly. So I was
Oh,
like, you know what? That's bananas. Everybody has lifetime access. For anyone who's listening and like, what about the people who bought for 6 months? It's retroactive. Everybody has lifetime access. So if you join now, that's great. And the Love Trust Money Party just kicked off. It's in the client portal. So if you're listening to this in the future, you will find it in your client portal, which you get instant access to when you join. And I want you to not think I missed the party. I want you to think, oh, the party started at 8 and it's 8:30. Here I come. That is the analogy I bring. Even if you come in and the party is, quote, leaving, you're then like, cool, where's the after party? That's the vibe. Bring that.
Because, as Serena says, you have impeccable timing.
Oh my God, I love that you know that. That's it, you guys. When we decide,
I think about this all the time. It's such a profound undoing of our I'm too late. Why didn't I get there in time?
No, we're
Turns
right
out,
on time.
right on
Impeccable. Impeccable. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for letting me put you all the way on the spot and be like, this is one of two. Listeners, find my friend anywhere on the internet. You'll find show notes and also circle back. And also, if you like this episode, please like, review, let us know. Find us on the social. Where do you hang? Do you prefer, like, I see you on Facebook, but
I'm on Instagram. No, yeah, Facebook is just private for me. I don't know. Like we just create these somewhat arbitrary boundaries. But Instagram is great. And obviously the Substack community, if you're into finding that. But yeah, LinkedIn. Is that
I'm never on LinkedIn? I don't. So
but like sometimes my DMs in LinkedIn are where the fun happens, you know.
What?
We could, because that's where we can be people.
Oh, I just get ads. Everyone's just constantly trying to like.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I block those as quickly as possible and try to keep it an actual space of humans, you know, humans.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to add, because I didn't say this earlier and should have, that my book is available as an audiobook with me. And I do feel like it is the highest and best way to receive it.
Okay, I didn't know that, so I'm very happy that you shared that. And I want to tell you guys a thing, because like attracts like. I love when the author reads the audiobook, and something that I do very intentional. So listeners, you may have heard me say this, but if not, this is like one of my favorite life tricks. And by tricks, I mean gifts I give myself. Listening to the author reading, and like I can feel my energy attune. It's like I get more. Like I hear the words, but it's like I can feel the energy coming into my system. I just think it's the
intention
greediest.
behind it, you know, it's the intention behind it. Also, like, needless to say, this is completely applicable to any of us speaking on a stage too. The words are just the tip of the iceberg. The words are just the collection of the feelings and thoughts and spirit behind it. Feelings and thoughts, spirit, more important.
Okay, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. All right, this was something I underlined a few minutes ago, and I just have to share it. I'm going to wrap us up with it, because I was like, that's it. We're going to need another episode. But if you're listening to this, and I suspect you've been inspired, I want you to think of, can I read some of page 4? Do I have permission? Some.
You have permission.
Thank you. I worked on a slightly new way of speaking that felt strange until it didn't, and ushered myself back into the land of the living, and certainly years later, thriving by every measure. I love that you articulated it felt strange until it didn't, and I ushered myself. Just mic drop, loving, and as a reminder for everyone in the creative process, it feels strange until it's your new normal. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you later. I love you all. Love you, mean it. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you loved it, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave a great review. If you didn't, okie dokes. I still love you. I still mean it. If you'd like to work together, you can find me at serenahicks.com. Also, any and all of my social profiles, click the link in profile and you'll find information about my 6-month group program. It is my signature 6-month program. It's $3,000 for 6 months of access. It's called the Boom Boom Room, specifically because we will take your current concepts about you and money and we will make them go boom. Also bloom, but it's fun to say boom, and it's fun to say Boom Boom Room. Love you, mean it. See you on the internet. Bye.